This is where it all began, in the late 1800s. Hi everybody, my name is Patty Chmielewski, and today I am privileged to introduce you to the 2015 International Polka Hall of Fame inductee, who happens to be my dad. From Poland to this tiny little homestead in Sturgeon Lake, Minnesota is truly where it all began. It began with my great-grandfather, Frank Chmielewski, who started the Chmielewski Fun Time Band. And then in 1911 was Tony, Nick, Dennis, and John, all brothers who formed the second generation. And then came along my dad, who, like I said, was the 2015 International Polka Hall of Fame inductee. And it is my privilege to introduce you to that man right now. It's my dad, Florian Chmielewski.
Well, thank you, Patty.
Dad, there's so much history in this house. Where do we begin?
Well, I was born in 1927.
Oh,
there was music to my ears because by that time my dad was in full swing playing the violin and the accordion. And so I had music around me from 1927. I had music in the next several generations. And how long are you going to keep going? We need to go two, three more generations.
Yeah, that's right. There's 6 generations of the Chmielewski family. But your mother was musical as well.
My mother, she was so careful. She wanted to be part of this music. And, she had to stay home because my mom and dad had 15 kids.
Right, in this house right here. Yeah. How did you possibly sleep? This is a 1-bedroom homestead.
Well, there's an upstairs to the house, And I can remember yet to this day, my brothers would holler down to Ma, she's, "Ma, Donnie's kicking me." Well, there were 4 in one bed.
Yeah. But on this home right here, we're going to tell you a little bit more of this story. But right over here is our barn, where you milked about 60 head of cattle. Yep. You were a dairy farmer right here on this thing. You inherited it, you bought it actually from your dad and took over the whole family business.
That's right. I bought the farm from my dad and mom, and I tell you, I farmed that thing for many years until finally a big break came along, and
we're going to tell them about that a little bit later.
1955, I was kind of looking ahead.
Yeah, you were looking way ahead, because this is where you were born. Actually, because your mother, she'd be out here picking beans in the garden, and she'd go inside. This is from what the stories you told me. She'd go inside and have a baby and go back outside and pick more beans.
That's the way it was in those days. That was a tough living.
The story of my dad and his accordion and his whole legend began in this house. That's why we wanted to show you this house, because he was given an accordion from his brother, and he's going to tell you the story about how he began in this little house. But we're going to take a trip over to your current home, which is only about a quarter mile down the road, and we're going to give you the whole history of the Chmielewski family.
I got an award for out here at the farm.
You did?
Yeah, I planted a lot of corn and a lot of oats and like that, and I have a picture of myself outstanding in my field.
Now we're back inside at my dad's house, and Dad, let's talk about when you got your first accordion.
Oh, my first accordion came when I was 18 years old. I was a student at Willow River High School, and my brother came home from working in Minneapolis. And he said, "Florian, I bought this accordion, and they won't let me play it because the landlord says you can't have this music and stop that noise in this place." So he said, "I'm going to leave it here, and if you're interested, I'll come back in about maybe a month, 5-6 weeks, and see how you're doing, okay?"
Okay.
Well, then he came home.
Okay.
And he surprised. He said, "Well, Florian, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing pretty good. I booked 2 wedding dances." "How'd you do that?" Well, I said, that was fun. Because actually this Adam Klosowski was a POW, was getting married, and he said he heard that I had an accordion. So he came over, and he said, "I want you to play for my wedding." And I said, "Well, Adam, I only know 4 songs. I can't play 4 songs for a wedding. That's good enough for me," he said. And Adam and Irene lived both neighbors to me. And so I said, "Okay, if that's what you need." So I went to the Sturgeon Lake Village Hall, and I proudly started out to play my first song. You'd never believe what it was.
What was it?
I didn't have a march, so I made it up. I took Johann Pusnippen, and I played it like da 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 instead of "Here Comes the Bride," because I couldn't play that. And so then the bride and groom smiling, they come right up to the center of the stage. I looked in their beautiful eyes, and anyway, the second song I played was a song for the bride, and it was "My Happiness."
Oh, that's a wonderful song.
Yeah. "Evening shadows make me blue." Oh, yeah, that was so nice. That was for the bride. And so for the third song, you know, I don't know, I played "Hoop by Shoop by." Hoop by shoop by, hoop by shoop by, hoop by shoop by, da na. And then I suddenly realized that my repertoire was gone. I had only one more song to go. Yeah, I had one more song to go.
So you played these over and over?
I played them all over all night long. and then people were dancing. The more they drank, the better the music sounded. So anyway, here comes the last dance of the evening. Yeah. I'm not sure that this part is true.
But I've heard this story many a time, so let's go with it.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, I'm thinking to myself, I have only one song, and it does not seem to be appropriate to play for a wedding.
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, what do I do now? So I raised my eyes to heaven like this, and I said, "Oh, Lord, you know doggone well it's the only song I know, so I don't have any choice. I'm going to play it."
Okay.
What do you think it was?
I know what it was. I know the story.
"Oh, I don't want her, you can have her. She's too fat for me."
Hey!
Yes, she's too fat for me. That's it. And the wedding was over with. And then anyway, Adam came up. They said they were so proud to hear me. I mean, anyway, he said, "Well, how much do I owe you?" And I said, "Well, you got to understand now, I'm the leader of the band. I just had a drummer with me, that was it. Joe Rudolph from Denham. Yeah, and I said, "I have to get more money than my sideman." He said, "That's understandable." He said, "How much would it be then?" I said, "Well, the sideman gets $6. And he said, "How about you, the leader of the band?" And I said, "The leader of the band gets $7."
Oh, boy.
Yeah, $7. So I said, "Okay." He reached in his wallet and he gave me a tip of $2.
Ooh.
Besides that.
And that's where it all began, didn't it? That gave you the little bug where this was your career. You
and they couldn't stop me. I was just rolling on. And so then 2 weeks later, I had another wedding to play, and by that time, I think I had 5 or 6 songs. But anyway, I built up my repertoire, and from there on in, it was one thing after another. How could I milk those 60 head of cattle, and how could I possibly go on the road every night and play?
Because you still lived at the other home that we were at earlier.
Yes, I did. And I was milking the cows and playing music 6, 7 times a week.
Wow.
Because what happened in 1955, a big television truck come on my yard, and I'll never forget that. He walks in the house and he said, "Oh, I heard you on the radio playing," because they asked me to play a song on the Tolkien radio station. I said, "Okay." So he said, "I want to have you guys on television. Have your own television show." And I said, "Oh my God, I don't know if I could do that." So he said, "Well, come on in and we'll try it out." So when I went to Duluth and tried it out, I said, "Okay, Monday, 5:30. I mean, right into prime time like that. And we went on and the show was a blast. It was just unbelievable. I mean,
was that the show that was half in Polish and half in English?
Yeah, Len Wajkowski was the MC. Yeah. And that was it, the Polish TV party.
Wow.
Half in Polish, yeah.
So from 1955, we're going to back up a little bit because I know you were in the service. And when you had that accordion, I understand that you brought it with you. You brought it with you everywhere.
I brought it with me all the way to England.
That's right, England. So let's hear a little bit about you in the service. with that accordion. And then there was, because there was a band you played in, and on the radio stations that you were out there.
Well, we played with a band called the Barbie X Gang. I mean, we had a big fiddle, and Johnny Naylor was the vocalist. And we had a really nice band. We traveled, especially around the Louisiana area.
This is while you were in the service?
I was in the service, yep. And we traveled and were on stage a lot of times with some of the better country artists. So as part of a warm-up or something to that effect. So that was it. Spent 3 years and 1 month in the service, and I got on a telephone, called my dad, and said, I got a chance to get out of here. He said, and what can I do for you? And I said, well, I want to buy the farm. And he couldn't take it. He cried. And he said, I'm so glad to get all these kids I had, and nobody wanted any interest in this farm. So I came home and started farming, and lo and behold, after I'm doing all that music, the TV show showed up.
Oh, that's when the TV show came.
Yeah, he showed up then in 1955. So in 1955...
Well, I need to back up even further.
Yeah.
Because when you were in the service, you were on the radio, and you filled in for a very popular country western singer.
Hank Williams.
That's right. That's right.
Hank Williams, here's the way that went. We were on KENT Shreveport. I was on every Saturday from like 11 to 11:30, and Hank Williams Sr. followed me.
Okay.
And if he didn't show up, I just did his whole show too. So that's the way that went.
Okay, well, the thing I remember you telling me is, in the service, you didn't get a chance to come home very much. So I remember a story you telling me that accordion saved you in many ways. No, I must say, because you hitchhiked.
I hitchhiked from Shreveport, Louisiana to Sturgeon Lake.
And you only had 40 cents in your pocket, is what I remember.
40 cents. And I had my accordion in one hand, a duffel bag in the other, and I'm on my way home to take over that farm.
And the ironic thing is, it seems like whenever you've had your accordion, there's always been an angel watching over you. Because I remember you telling me how you hitchhiked and you ended up at this farmhouse and you were starving, you're hungry because you only had 40 cents in your pocket.
Well,
you lost it all in this poker game.
Yeah, that's all I had is 40
and
cents.
you didn't want to call your mom and dad and say, Mom, Dad, I need some money to get home. So that's why you took it upon yourself to go hitchhiking your way back with that accordion. So you went from home or you went to a few cafes, I remember, and you said, I'll play for a bowl of soup.
That's it. That's the way it was.
Well, back in 1955, you said you began the TV show, the Polish TV Party. But then, a year later, you met a very special lady.
Oh, yes.
We got to hear about that story because it's so unusual.
I was traveling to northern Minnesota, and they told me that the snowing was over there, and I had to cancel the dance. So I stopped over at this nightclub at Atkinson, Minnesota.
Okay.
And I was talking to the manager who was with the band, and all of a sudden this lady came up to me and said, would you dance with me? And I said, sure. In about a half hour, she came back and said, I want to dance with you. I said, okay. So I danced with her. I said, where do you live? She said, Duluth. That's about 20 miles down the road. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll take you home. She said, no, we can't. You came with a different company, and I can't do that. And I said, no, I'll go and talk to your other company. I'm taking you home. So anyway, I drove to her house about 20 miles away, and I said, you know, I'm playing 7 nights a week, milking 50, 60 cows. I said, what do you say? Do you want to get married? Yeah, she said, why not? So I said, well, I tell you, I will get you a diamond in June. That was about 6 months away. And then I'll get married in September with you. That's about it. She said it's a good deal. So anyway, I didn't see her till almost about June. And then I called her up and says, you haven't forgot about the wedding, have you? She said, no, I haven't. And I said, okay, that's it. I brought her the diamond, and then we got married. And she went with the band, too. She drummed, as a matter of fact.
She did drum for a little while.
But, you know, I want to tell you about my first record then.
Yes, do it.
So,
I've got something right here I want to show everybody.
Okay.
It wasn't an album. It wasn't an entire album that you did. It was a recording. And this right here is one of them. It's a song on each side. It's a 78.
Oh, yeah, but you see what happened? I recorded this here with the announcer from WKLK Radio, and he called me up and he's playing my songs. And all of a sudden he said, just leave the radio on now and listen. I'm going to play your song. And he played the song, but it was a different title. Oh. And I found out then that the 4 songs that I had recorded, someone else changed the name of the songs and stole my songs. And then I thought it over a little bit, and I was really glad. I thought, you're good, this is my first records. I'm glad that someone would steal them, that they were that good.
Must be that good, that's right. And the reason I bring this out is kind of interesting because vinyl is coming back, and here's our regular record LP, and there's the 78. So see the difference in size. You got a whole album, a lot of songs on this, and only 2 songs on this. So that was kind of neat. So you started out with your recordings on single 78.
Single, then I went on to this, and I made 40 albums.
40 albums.
And then while I was doing the records, the show was going on the air, and at the same time, I had no choice. I had to get rid of those cows.
But there was a story that went with that. You thought, you went out and performed, and you thought, you come home late at night, and you thought my mom, wow, what an incredible woman I married. She milked all these cows for me.
I said to you, first of all, I went upstairs, changed the clothes, came downstairs and had this wonderful meal. I turned to my wife and I said, oh, I can't believe it. I stayed up all night long, and here it is. Such a beautiful, you treat me just like a king. And I said, but most of all, milk those 50 cows. And then she looked at me and she said, started to cry, and she said, now, who the hell said I milked all the cows? So I said, I think the next day, we were overwhelmed with requests to play. And so the buyer come in and I sold them, and we got a whopping $150 for each cow.
Wow.
So they were on the road, and then we went into, I met this radio guy from KDAL television, Pat Cadigan, and along with Lauren Lindevig, who was one of the good accordion players that we had. And anyway, we changed television stations from DSM, we went to Channel 3 in Duluth, and there, our show was so popular, we were having a bigger audience than the nation's #1 show, Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker at the time.
Yeah.
That was in the 70s, I believe.
That was in the 70s.
That's right. So, and we were, us kids, the 4th generation at that time, were performing with you.
Yeah, you sure were. We drove all over. The kids were on the back of the truck. We put a blanket over there, and you're sleeping all the way home. That's
what we do. You'd literally go from Wyoming to Chicago to back to North Dakota, and the jobs weren't right next to one another. It was, you laid out the instruments just perfectly, a flat area where we could scooch in with our feet, and that's where we would sleep.
But the thing, when the dance is over, I don't care what time of the day it was, at time of the night, we'd always come home so we could go to church in the morning.
That's right.
And so what happened is that this one time in South Dakota, we were the whole family was in church over there, and the priest said, anyway, I can't understand. I was trying to figure out how come there are so few people in church today. He said, I suppose they're out there to see those Chmielewski family. They're out at the ballroom. And the whole parish that was there, they start laughing, because we were in church.
Yeah, the priest didn't realize that we were in church.
When he made the sign of the cross at the very end, he said, listen, please, accept my apology. I'd like to have the family stay so I could visit with them.
We are up to the 60s now. The reason we're going through so much history, because there is so much history with you.
Okay.
You're only 93 years young. And when you got that prestigious International Polka Hall of Fame award, you were 88 years old. I tell you, was I supposed to tell him your age?
No, don't talk about my age. No. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Well, okay. 46 years ago, I was 47.
All right. That's it. That's all we're going to say. What sets you apart in polka music? And I know, because this is leading up to our next area in years, it's the politics.
Well, everybody knew me because, my mother was on the school board, my dad was on the town board for 32 years, and all of a sudden the doorbell rang, and a guy comes to the door. He said, I'm retiring as county commissioner, and then he asked my dad to run in his place. And my dad said, no, I can't do that. I'm too old for that. I know a guy that could handle that. And so they selected me. And so anyway, I told him, no, I haven't got the time. They said, well, I'll come back in 2 weeks and let you know. So he came back in 2 weeks, and I thought it over, and I thought to myself, why not? So I ran, and it was crazy because I came in second in the primary.
Right.
But I whitewashed them in the fall. I became a county commissioner like my grandfather was. And so as we were going through all of that as a county commissioner, I took the job and decided I was going to run then for the Minnesota Senate. I did that. I ran for the Senate, and I tell you, I won an overwhelming victory. There were about 50,000 votes, and I won by 9 votes.
That was a landslide for sure. Landslide. What sets you apart from other musicians is the political part of your life. And as I understand, when you were in the Senate, you had that accordion there with you. Like I said, in the Air Force and then in the Senate. And you often, when the parties wouldn't agree with one another, crack out the old accordion, and let's hear a little bit about that.
Well, I brought the accordion out because the way the system worked, the tax bill was the only thing left to go through the session with, and you weren't allowed to be in the conversation unless you were on that particular committee. So the rest of the Senate had nothing to do. So I thought, well, let's see what I can do. Maybe I can take some action around here. So I took the accordion out, and I said, in the auditorium part, and I said, let's just have a party. So the party from all sides come in. They were dancing, and we had a good time. And one of them come up to me and he says, my God, Senator, you're going to look like a fool. People are just going to be crazy. The governor they're running out of here. It didn't take long. The governor came down and he says, what a party, what a party. That's Governor Purpich. And he was out there dancing, Yeah. I want to tell you about a Purpich.
I know. I was just going to say that when you mentioned that. We're in the 70s. It was 1978 when you began the very first International Polka Festival.
That's what you're running now.
In Pine City, Minnesota. That's right. And so speaking of Governor Purpich, you invited him to come because he was going to proclaim that Pine City or your festival was, or what was that, the Polka Days or something like that. And what happened there?
Well, here's what happened is that I had a guy from Cloquet come with a little big hat. He had a little red circle or red light going across. And he was carrying what I said was the torch comparable to the Olympics.
Right.
I was making it big.
Yeah.
And anyway, when he come to the governor's 6'4", he's 5 feet tall, and he bent over and spilled the fuel oil on the governor, and Rudy Purpich was burning all the way from his neck all the way down to his trousers. And anyway, the next day, I come home.
We did put him out, the fire out.
We put the fire out.
Of course.
And the next day, the state patrol pulls up on my yard. And they said, the governor wants to see you. He's out in the cafe there. And so I said, okay. So they took me out to the cafe, and I saw the governor.
Were you nervous?
Oh, no, I was curious for sure. But I knew that he was a friend. But I walked in, and there he was, friendly as ever. I mean, he looks with a nice smile, and I thought to myself, oh, my God, I'm glad he's smiling. So I walked in, we sat down and talked a little bit, and he said, Florian, here's the deal. You're such a good friend of mine. I was even at your daughter's wedding. Mm-hmm. He was at your wedding, too. And so then he said, the attorneys, 11 attorneys called me to take up my case, to sue you. And I said, yeah. And he said, but since you're such a good friend, I told 10 of them attorneys to go to hell. I'll work this out with one.
That's right.
And then about 2 weeks later, his wife called, the governor's wife called, and said, Florian, I just wanted you to know, you did me such a favor. I couldn't stand that suit that he was wearing. I'm glad you burned it up for him. So that was it. And then I did the festival for 35 years, and then that's where you come in to take over.
That's right, I took that over. But when you did the polka festivals, I tell you, you brought in such incredible things. You had dancing horses, skydivers that would come in and drop in on baseball fields, and we'd do a gong show. At the time, it was like a 5-day festival. I can't even remember how many bands. 50 bands.
Yeah.
It was just an incredible thing. And at that time, we danced on the dirt. There was no wooden dance floors. It was in a fairground, and it was crazy. Rain or shine, people danced everywhere. Do you remember some of those? Or actually, we had world wrestling matches there too.
I had the world wrestling, and I had the world's worst singer.
And we had
Jensen.
Yes, we had contests, and we had tug of war matches, international tug of war matches.
All combined with the polka festival.
Yes, yes. We were bringing music to people that don't normally have this kind of, or not normally exposed to this kind of music.
If you want to accent the polka festival, you've got to bring in everything that they like. And so we had from Ireland, we had the tug of war. And the tug of war, there's Irish people, were about 50, 60 of them. They were about 150, 160 pounds. And they were they're going to pull the tug of war with these big, heavy Germans from Pine City. And guess who won? The Irish.
Right.
They were just so
Really
perfectly timed. So that was going pretty good. But we did that, and we got a lot of awards going along. I got the Polka Hall of Fame from Chisholm, from Minnesota. And then I got the Minnesota Music Award from New Ulm, Minnesota. A year at the one in Ironwood, Minnesota.
The mini Grammys.
Oh, the mini Grammys, that's right. Yeah, we had 10 or 11. Yeah, we won of the Grammys. Let's see, we won about 10 of the 11 contests.
Categories.
Yeah.
Yep, the categories. Well, it's just an interesting life. From 18 years old, you picked up that accordion. Aren't you glad that your brother Chester didn't take that accordion back?
Oh, I know what I've done without that. But I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to you now, because I see the last 3 years or 4, you did the International Polka Festival. And now when this pandemic is here, we aren't going to run it until something changes.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because your life kind of paralleled your father's, because he was a musician, he was a county commissioner, and all the things that he did, ran the farm, the dairy farm, and then you took that over and did all of that, and musician with your brothers, just like your dad and his brothers, and...
Well, with being, I'm almost 94 now, and I'm still playing once a week at least.
That's right. Well, you played a lot more than that before the pandemic.
I played every single day.
Yeah, because at the time in the 1970s when our television show was on, I recall we were playing 278 jobs a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 2-3 times a day, almost 7 days a week, and then we just couldn't keep up with the television shows anymore. It was like,
well, what about that television show now, Channel 21 in Duluth? Are they going to revisit our shows?
That's right. That's right. So I was just saying, for 34 years, you had your television show in Duluth because we couldn't keep up with it anymore with all the performances and your state senator and things. So we couldn't do that. But now we're bringing those back, and it's going to be called Chmielewski Fun Time Revisited. Bringing those television shows back, because that's just kind of the thing. Those retro things are in now. So what do you think? Do you think that you were just in the right place at the right time?
Exactly.
Exactly. Because I was just going to say, what kind of advice would you give young musicians that want to pursue something that you did?
Well, we've got some young musicians right now warming up, but they come here to the house and ask advice, and I give them advice. Just tell them, don't drink, don't smoke. Make sure that
go to church.
Go to church.
Don't forget that.
So we do.
And okay, so you did radio for so many years, television. And you did the Polka Fest for how many years did you do it? 35 years?
35
Probably
years.
35 years, and I took it over. And then you did tours You did fun time tours too.
The fun time tours, yeah.
You really didn't even have to advertise. You took all your fans with you to Hawaii, to Europe, all around the world, and it was a great time. We performed on cruise ships, everywhere.
I played the Minnesota State Fair for at least 30 times, and
30 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I
The
played
Hoos Fest.
The Hoos Fest is a Norwegian festival in Minot, North Dakota. 75,000 people in 3 days.
Right.
And 25,000 a day. I played that for 25 years in a row.
What's your fondest memory in the polka music?
Well, I have to go multiple on that because, see, when I went to the Norwegian Festival, I was with this accordion player, a friend of mine, Lauren Lindevig, and anyway, he said, "We're going to have a big treat for you." And I said, "Okay." So we sat down, and oh my God, they served lutefisk. I thought to myself, how in the world if I could conquer this? I could do all kinds of things, but can I actually conquer eating lutefisk? And I thought to myself, I have to be polite about this. So I took some white gravy and I poured it on the lutefisk. And then what I did is I had some cranberry sauce.
Right.
I poured that on there and I ate with the best of them. I ate that lutefisk. And so the story is that they said, we're going to have a lot of bands. They're going to be trying out. And they're going to try out. After you all tried out, we make our selections. We're going to be serving you the best meal that you can. And all these big stars come over there and they were eating the biggest, most expensive steaks there were. They were so foolish. And they said, "What about the Chmielewski family, Polish family? What is your favorite food? What do you want?" And I said, "Our Chmielewski family eat nothing but lutefisk."
And that got your ticket in.
That got my ticket in.
Pretty savvy with that. So lutefisk was a great memory, huh? I mean, we can tell you stories. I know you can. The stories of our vehicles breaking down, being in winter storms and things. Is there any kind of wacky story that really stands out to you that you remember?
It seemed as if the Lord was with me all the time.
I know, that's what I said. I think an angel always followed you.
I'd run out of gas. I'd run out. I'd run out in front of a gas station. I had a tire just blew out not too many days ago, and guess where it was? By Glenn's Tire Shop in Mora.
Yeah.
So everything that happened on the road, it seemed as if it was timed. It was just beautiful.
It's very ironic how that would happen. So, do you have any icons that you looked up to you?
I played on that stage for about 10 years with Myron Florin from the Lawrence Welk Show because we were then the Lawrence Welk Band.
Right.
And the friend that I had was from Cloquet. Lauren Lindevig is a Norwegian guy, and I played with him so many years. With Myron Florin about 10, and
I can't forget Frankie Yankovic.
Oh, Frankie Yankovic. Yeah, he'd call me up, and he'd say, "Book me some more jobs. Just give me a few $100 and pay for my airfare out here, and I'll go any place you want me to go." Because he liked my introductions to him. I'd always tell him, "Here it is, the man who made polkas so famous."
That's right.
He said, "You want to be happy? This is the happiest music there is."
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. In the 1980s, the band was selected to do a cultural exchange mission. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, the Minneapolis Fire Department called me up and said, "It's a cultural exchange mission. The Bahamians were here in Minnesota, and we'd like to have you go to the Bahama Islands. We'll pay all of your expenses, and we'd like to have some television shows there."
And we were to teach them how to do the polka and to dance, I remember.
Yes. So anyway, I was on the phone. I hung up on the phone, and my wife said, "What's happening?" And I said, "Oh, they wanted me to go to Bahama Islands." She said, "What did you tell them?" And I said, "I told them no." And she said, "Yes, call them back. Tell them you're going." So we went to the Bahama Islands to do television shows, and it was really cute. They really responded wonderfully. And then there's a story about you in there.
Me?
Yes.
What did I do?
You were, I don't know how old, you were maybe, 1980s? I don't want to talk about age again.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that, because the older I am, the older you are.
That's right. I never thought about that. Well, anyway, we went to the exchange mission, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got up, my kids are gone. Where the heck are they? And so I asked one of the people, they said, where do you think my kids went? They said, probably in the casino. So I went over to the casino, and there they were playing dollar machines. And so I said to the guy at the door there, I said, well, what do you mean? They don't...
Not of age.
Yeah, they're not of age at all. And he says, well, the question was, do they have money?
Actually, I think I stayed back with you, and I think it was my brothers that did that.
You were there too. And well, anyway, we played there, did television shows, came back, and then they called me up from the fire department and said, what do we owe you? And I said, owe me? You don't owe me anything. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Yes, you do. And he said, well, okay, what do we owe you? And I said, well, when you took me through the fire station, you had those big, long trucks for fire. I said, I'd like to have you donate one to the city of Sturgeon Lake, and you could drive it down there yourself. And he said, it's a deal. And they donated that big...
fire engine, that's right.
Yeah, that big fire engine to the city of Sturgeon Lake.
You know, in my hands, I almost forgot to mention this, because this is one of your latest endeavors.
Well, let's show it to the camera.
It's called 0 to 90, Florian Chmielewski, from farm boy to fly boy, from senator to king of polka in 90 quick years. And I tell you, this is... I mean, it's not that big, but I tell you, it took you 3 years to get this book put together. And I became an author, which I didn't know I was. But as we started putting this together, it's a very interesting story. It's got, I tell you, some stories in here that are just unbelievable. And what an accomplishment that was. That was one of your goals that you wanted to do.
That was it. We got the book, and there it is.
Tell your whole story right there.
Tells the whole story.
Interesting. Great pictures in here, and there's so much more in here that we haven't even told everybody. I mean, how can you, with 75 years of history and all that you have accomplished? You know, I got a question. Being 93 years old, is there any plans for retirement?
Retirement? What's that? Listen, I'm still playing at least once a week, except for the pandemic.
Right.
I'd be out there every day. But no, I travel, it's about 35 miles to the VFW in Cloquet. I play there twice a month. And then we do a lot of town stuff.
That's
the
right,
cities.
in the cities, yeah.
And,
but you would normally be playing 5-6 days a week if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Absolutely.
So, you know, let me just give you a little history here. So, let me just summarize. You got your accordion at 18. You've been in radio for so many years. I would guess around 40 years you've been doing television. You've made 40 record albums, and you have been a county commissioner for 10 years. You've been a state senator for 26 years. You put on a Polka Fest for 35 years, and I took that over. and you did all of this playing the accordion.
One more thing.
What? One more thing to add?
Yes. What happened is that when I was a county commissioner, I got a call from the Willow River High School School Board.
Okay.
They called me up and they said, Florian, we lost our band director. Would you be the band director till we can find someone full-time? And I did. So for the first semester, there I was. I was the band director of the Willow River High School Band.
But I remember one of your goals in that was that you taught everybody how to play the beer barrel polka.
Oh, I did. My band actually switched in. I switched in some music to the beer barrel polka. That's true.
Wow. Wow. It's just amazing. What a history. I mean, it's just incredible. And it makes me proud to be by your side. I don't think I've left your side. From the moment that I used to sit on your foot and you'd walk around the house and not even know I was attached to your foot. It's been a wonderful, wonderful ride, and we've got several years ahead of us to go.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to thank the IPA for giving us this opportunity to interview my dad. I mean, what a fun thing to do this is. And I just want to thank them for letting us give the history of my dad. And since 2015, that was your big day, your big accomplishment.
Well, you know, we can't forget your son, Nick.
Okay.
He did a lot of the writing to the IPA said, "What are you doing? Here's my grandpa. He's been playing this accordion." And when they called back, they said, "My goodness, we didn't see anything with a record like that. He should have been in there for the last 30 years." So I have to give credit to Nick. I want to give credit Pat Cadigan from KDAL Radio, Lauren Lindevig from Cloquet, Minnesota, Don Welsh from Barnum, a veterinarian. He was a piano player, and so many people. Chuck Prudhomme, who else?
Boy, I mean,
and my brothers, Donnie, Leonard, Chester, all of them.
Your children, your grandchildren. Like I said, we're in 6 generations of family.
Yeah, they are. Sincerely, I want to thank you, and thank you as the IPA for the chance to be interviewed.
Oh, it was so much fun. I loved it. So thank you, everybody at the IPA, and for giving me this opportunity to interview my dad and giving you the history of where it all began with the Chmielewski family. Thank you. So long.
So long.